and then I'll start the webinar. So you ready?
Whenever you are.
Okay, we'll get rock and roll. Well, hello, good night, good evening, whatever this is. It's still bright outside, so that feels pretty good. You know, spring is springing. We're real excited today. We have Jennifer here with us, and Jennifer is with the Alzheimer Association of Greater Indianapolis, or Greater Indiana. I keep wanting to, limit your scope more, but anyway, so I'm going to let Jennifer talk about what she's doing. She basically, they work her to death there, doing all the different programs and doing all the things that interact with the clients and with the clients' families and the caregivers, and runs a lot of the fundraising programs and a lot of the different, you wear a lot of hats, if I'm not mistaken. So as far as that goes, but I don't think a lot of people have any idea just all the different things that the Alzheimer Association has available. I remember having someone explain to me once before from you guys that you have about 6,000 people that you serve, and you probably should be serving many multiples of that, but people just don't know to get a hold of you. So let's see what we can do tonight to get a few more people to know to get a hold of you. How's that?
Love it.
Jennifer, I want to turn it over to you. Please introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about the Alzheimer Association, what your role is there, why you went there, I guess is a good thing. And then try to explain to us all these wonderful things that the Alzheimer Association offers through, you guys.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation to be here this evening. As you said, I seem to get around. I do quite a bit of networking. I'm out in the community quite a bit. Because although I am responsible for my specific role within the association, we are responsible for the entire state of Indiana. And there's a lot of information for a small group to share. So to introduce myself, I am Jennifer Lovell Buddenbaum. My title is Manager of the Longest Day, which is one of our signature campaigns. But yet when I'm in community, I represent the entire association, all of our pillars. And it's kind of our understanding that if someone asks us a question that we can't answer, we will connect you within the association to someone who can. What brought me to the association? I have been here a little over 2.5 years, and I come from a corporate background. I was a vice president of sales with Monster.com, if you remember the job board, back in the day during its glory days, if you will, where we used to advertise on the Super Bowl and all that fun stuff, and worked for a little while with Radio Disney before they closed all of their terrestrial offices. And it was from there that I went to work for another radio station. And I can remember sitting in a sales meeting, and I was just like, I don't feel good about what I'm doing. Like, I'm not getting, I don't feel good at the end of the day about what I'm doing. And so I was fortunate enough where my husband was like, why don't you just kind of chill out, if you will, find what it is that fills your bucket. And so it was during the pandemic where I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't find something to do, someone in this house is going to get hurt. And not really, but you know how it is. But I was kind of looking on the internet, and I kept coming across this position with the Alzheimer's Association. And at the time, I kind of had the mindset, I don't want to work with the Alzheimer's Association because our family is living it. My aunt at the time was living with Alzheimer's. I had an uncle with Lewy body's dementia. We had other family members that were living with Alzheimer's disease. And it was just, I was seeing firsthand that, it's a horrible, horrible disease. And I didn't know if that was really something that I wanted to do for a job. But the more that I read about this position and read about the association and what they do, because I really hadn't heard of them before, I was like, I have to have this job. Like, I thought I was going to stalk people until they gave me an interview and I had this job, because again, I'm passionate about the cause, and people don't understand why I am so passionate, but I've lived it and I've seen the impact that this disease can have on a family. So that's what brought me here.
Well, that's amazing. And you're right. It is, you know, also, and you guys don't just do Alzheimer's. You handle the entire myriad of, and you know, most people don't realize that. A lot of people just, you know, want to put everything under one bucket, but there's what, dozens and dozens of different kinds of dementia. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that we try to do out in the community, is for people to understand the difference of Alzheimer's and dementia. And the way we describe it, and I know you've probably heard it a million times, but think of dementia as the umbrella. And those are the words that we use to describe the symptoms. And then underneath that umbrella are all the different types of dementia. We use Alzheimer's because that is the dementia that is most diagnosed. But, you know, under that is vascular dementia, Lewy bodies, you know, firsthand that dementia and Parkinson go hand in hand. So it could be a dementia that is caused by Parkinson. And so again, dementia and Alzheimer's, we focus on all the dementias.
Yeah, so and then you're doing some, you know, you're doing not only for the clients or for the patients, but for the part that a lot of people don't realize is the taking dementia friends class myself opened a lot of eyes to me to understand things. That one of the things that's staggering to me that I didn't know was that the caregiver that's caring for that person, predominantly, especially in a dementia situation, the caregiver dies before the person that they're caring for, because of the 24-hour, 365 nonstop stress.
Yes. And I actually had a couple slides, because I thought, well, it doesn't really do any good to talk about why or how to engage with the association if they don't know why we're engaging. So that is one of the slides that I was going to run through tonight. So you have hit the nail on the head, that there's just a lot of stress on that caregiver because they're taking care of someone else. They don't take time to go to the doctor. They're not getting sleep. They're not getting proper nourishment. And you'll see here in just a minute as well, is that the majority of our caregivers are 65 and older.
Yeah.
So it's that time in their life where they should really be focusing on their health as well.
Well, we have a caring transition franchise where we help people, you know, predominantly seniors, transition or relocate into, you know, to a downsized home or to senior living or what have you. But often we're doing cleanup after an estate as well, you know, and so we're in the Falcon one right now where they were actually in a senior living community, independent living, and he was caring for his wife with dementia and apparently fell. She couldn't do anything about it. Nobody knew about it, you know, and then we lost him through that process, you know. So it's yeah. So I'm dealing with it, with a family, with it right this very second with that particular story. So, you know.
So you understand it. I mean, that's it. I mean, you've seen it firsthand. And I usually say when I'm out in the community or I talk to somebody and they tell me that, you know, they've either lost a loved one or caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia, it almost sounds cliche, but I just say to them, I'm like, you get it. Yeah. You know, you get it. You firsthand witnessed it. So.
Well, there's some other stats that just blew me away, which is one reason I wanted you on here and this kind of stuff. Like there's a stat that I can't remember where I read about it, but it was in a caregiver, you know, thing where 1 in 3 households in America today have someone that's caring for someone that you know, not necessarily just dementia, but different kinds of needs within that house. 1 in 3. That's
1 in 3.
That's staggering. Okay, you know,
and 2/3 of them are women that are the caregivers. And then I'll also show you a statistic in a minute where a lot of them are what we call the sandwich generation. So they're caring for their loved one who has Alzheimer's or dementia. And then they also have children that they're responsible for as well. So I was like, oh my gosh, I just cannot imagine the stress. You know,
it's you know, it is challenging. We have been the only siblings that stayed, you know, my wife is the only child and or only living child. And then we had my parents, my uncle, what have you. And it's amazing the pressures that are upon you to keep everything flowing here, you know, so.
Oh yeah.
So now another stat that blew me away. I think this is what I've learned again in Dementia Friends. So I'm also going to recommend Dementia Friends. It's well worthwhile knowing. And I'm sitting looking at your bookcase, and one of the examples that I was taught in that class was about a bookcase. But it was the fact that 1 in 6 millennials is a caregiver, for an older family member or what have you. That's 12 million when you extrapolate how many millennials are, and who's thinking about taking care of them. So but
yeah, that's definitely. And then just keep in mind, although we are partnered with SECOA, the Dementia Friends is a SECOA program, and it's highly recommended, and we support them and they support us. So if you ask me a Dementia Friends question, I may not have all the answers.
yeah, well, the reason I just bring it up, because it like I tell people, it's not going to give you a doctorate degree, but it's going to open your eyes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And looking at your bookcase, it made me think of that. One of the examples was trying to explain how, when Alzheimer's impacts someone, it's like looking at a bookcase, and you've had an earthquake and the top shelf all that memory shake out first, and then it's down to the bottom where all the family love and all that kind of stuff. That's the part that stays, more in the bookcase, right? So it was an interesting,
it's a really good analogy. Yeah, I mean, a great way to describe it.
Well, I'm going to quit rattling on and say, I'm going to let you get your presentation going here, because I know you got slides and all that kind of stuff. I may jump in and ask questions, and we have other people on that may want questions. They can always get in the chat box or the question and answer box too. So
okay, great. Now you're testing my technology here to make sure that I can make this happen correctly. Give me just a second. All right. So as I mentioned, and please jump in. So are you seeing my screen okay there, Jim?
I do. It's perfect.
Woo. So there's many probably on this call that have seen a lot of this information. It reiterates some of the statistics that you just shared, but there are different ways to engage with us, but some people may not quite get the deep understanding of why they want to get involved with us in one way or another. So I thought I'm going to kind of go through those. I don't want to take more time than you've allotted for me, but I think it just helps people have a better understanding of the importance of engaging with the association. So being as community, as you know, is one of the things that I truly, truly enjoy, and wish I had more opportunities like this so that we can talk to the community, because every time I'm out in community, there's people that always come and say to me, I think I have Alzheimer's. What do I do next? Or what can I do to keep from getting Alzheimer's? And we have a small staff in Indiana. There's 20 of us, but we have an entire state of Indiana, and you don't realize how big the state of Indiana is until you've got an entire state that you're responsible for. So that's why volunteers are really, really important to our association. We are a volunteer-led association. So let's get into this. And I love our mission statement, because this is our focus. This makes sure that we, in a lack of better words, we stay on task of doing what we are to do. And that we want to lead the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia. And we do that by accelerating global research. And we are the 3rd leading funder of research, and that's behind the China governments and the American governments. So we are the #1 nonprofit funder of research. So if we don't want to be number 3, we can be number 1, because we're the #1 funder as a nonprofit. Driving risk reduction. I was able to listen to a IU researcher. We had a longest day kickoff last Thursday, and he spoke to this. And there's a lot of research going on right now. What are the environmental factors? What are some of the things that we can change in our lives, our lifestyles, to help reduce the risk of getting this disease? So it's an absolutely, fascinating, because, every day you hear that there are certain things that increase your risk. So that is one of the things that we are looking to do, is drive risk reduction. And then early detection, and I'm going to talk a little further on early detection in a few slides in, but that is one of the things we do quite a bit of programming around. What are the 10 warning signs? Because a lot of healthcare professionals will tell people, oh, you're just forgetting because it's a part of aging. Well, when it starts to affect your daily life, that's not a part of aging. That's a form of dementia, and we encourage people to advocate for themselves. And then also, we want to maximize quality care and support. So if there are families that have that diagnosis, we've got support groups across the state. And then we also provide, the 24/7 helpline that everybody's heard about, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but dementia and Alzheimer's just doesn't happen during business hours. So we offer this 24/7. So if you've got a loved one that's wandering up around night and you can't get him to sleep and you need some suggestions on how to get them to go to bed, they can call the 800 line, etc. So let's hop into it here. Oops. So there are more than 6 million Americans living with this disease, with Alzheimer's disease. This isn't the other dementias. So this is only Alzheimer's. 160,000 of them live right here in our Hoosier state. Trust me when I say we're not getting to all 160,000 people living with the disease. That breaks my heart. But again, we don't have huge advertising budgets, because the money that we bring into this association, we put back into research, because we are fueling our mission. So here's what you were talking about, the caregivers. 2/3 are women, 1/3 of them are daughters, excuse me. So us women, we kind of, take the lion's share. Sometimes even when it's your spouse's loved ones, the wife will step in and help their in-laws as well. And 1/3 of the caregivers are 65 and older. So you've got senior citizens helping senior citizens. Over half of them are primary givers. They're taking care of their parents. And then again, you can see here, we talked about the sandwich generation, where they're caring for their loved one as well as their children. And then here's one of those statistics, and you think about how hard it is to be a caregiver, but imagine if you were on a household income of $50,000 or less. Pretty difficult. So not only do you have the stress of caring for someone, but I'm pretty sure you've got some financial stresses on you as well. So here are some statistics, and this isn't going to shock anyone because we just had this conversation. 6 in 10, they say that it's stressful. This is a very stressful thing to do. The person who used to be your, mom or your dad or your grandmother, if now, as there's a patient. I mean, it's hard to see them in that way. It's stressful. They talk about how you can see here 74%, they're concerned about their own health because they're not taking care of themselves. They're stressed about their loved one, that additional stress. They don't take time to go to the doctor, the dentist, whatever it may be, to take care of themselves. 30% of them have increased depression. There's a lot of guilt that comes along with it, because you can't help them, or sometimes you've answered the same question 10 times and you're just so frustrated, and then you feel guilty for being frustrated, and it can lead to depression. And I somehow, when I first started this with the association, I joined this Facebook group of Alzheimer's caregivers. And for a while I was like, oh, this really isn't helping me professionally. I think I'm going to get off of it. But I've stayed on because the number of people that get on there and like, oh my gosh, I can't take this anymore, I'm running away, or, just really negative things. I like to chime in and encourage them to call our 800 line so they can get help, and somebody can talk to them about getting, some palliative care, something, so they can have a break so that they could get away from it. And then, you know how it goes. 59% of the caregivers feel like they're on duty 24 hours a day. And then, 72% of family caregivers experience relief when their loved one has died. And again, there's that whole guilt thing, because not only do you lose them when they forget who you are, but you lose them again, but you just have this sense of relief because you're like, oh my gosh, just a big burden taken off my shoulders. There's guilt that comes in there as well. So
you mentioned, or just a second, you mentioned the being on that support group on Facebook or online or whatever.
Yeah.
I joined a bunch of those, and oh my God, you feel like it just pulls your guts out. But so much of the information they're giving each other is bad information. It's it's the blind leading the blind. So I'm constantly giving, like for instance, this video will probably end up on one down the road. I'm always taking stuff from that we've done. When I go by, going here, there's information, So yeah.
And I'm glad you do that, because I'm kind of the same. I'm just like, oh my gosh, call the 800 line, because the information that person just shared with you is so, I don't want to say wrong, but it's misdirecting or something. I don't know how to put it, but so yes, I'm glad that you two, see that on the Facebook groups you're on. We know it's costly, and I've had many people before just kind of blow this slide off because they feel like, I'm not a caregiver for anyone. But we are all paying for this, because the cost of Medicare and Medicaid that it costs, this is the second most expensive disease behind cancer. So we're all paying for it. So if we don't find a way to slow down the progression or find the factors that are, that lead to Alzheimer's disease, it's going to get more and more expensive on the economy. Here's just some different things and why people want to get involved, because we do provide, everything that we do is free. We don't charge people to help them. We talked about the helpline. It's a 365 days a year. You can call on a holiday. You can call at 1 a.m. It is staffed with a master's level clinician. And we always tell people no question is too big or too small. If you've got a question, feel free to call and they will direct you to resources. And if you are in the senior care industry and you have not updated your information on the resource locator on our resource finder on our website, we encourage you to make sure your information is updated, because if they call and they're like, I'm going to have to put my mom in a memory care community, or I need a company that can help me get my mom out of her house. You want to make sure your information is updated, because if they're doing their due diligence, they're going to make a few phone calls and find the best fit for them and their family. All right, so we saw the statistic and why this gets into, again, why is it important to get involved with the association? Well, our studies, and in March, I'm kind of excited because we've got the new facts and figures coming out in March, which is tomorrow, which is a scary thought, tomorrow's March. But the numbers are projected to increase. So by 2050, you can see that the Alzheimer's dementia is projected to reach nearly 13 million. So again, we've got to find the volunteers out there. We've got to get people to participate in our campaigns. We've got to continue funding research so that we can change these numbers and change the course. Now, here's what I was going to talk about research. Early detection, as we talked about in our mission, is key. So when I started this job 2.5 years ago, we were only hoping for hope. There wasn't any treatment, there weren't any treatments, I should say, available to those living with Alzheimer's. But here we are, and I think my colleague Maria spoke earlier this month on the new treatments. And with Aduhelm and lecanemab, there we go, lecanemab, if I could say it, Leqembi, they work, but it has to be prescribed early in the diagnosis. So all the research shows that if it's given early in the diagnosis, there are less side effects, and it meaningfully slows down the progression of the disease. So it's our responsibility at the association, our volunteers, those in the community that are aware of this, we have to educate people the importance of early diagnosis and advocating for themselves when it comes to meeting with their healthcare professional. This needs to be a question when you go for your annual checkup. Do you do any kind of screening for, neurological screening or anything to that effect? So early detection is key. Also, the treatments that are out there, we have to advocate, because I don't know if you saw last week, but CMS said they're not going to pay for the new treatments. So it doesn't do anyone any good if they can't afford the treatments. And also accessibility. So we've got to make sure these drugs are accessible to everybody. Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, wouldn't it be one of those things that ultimately, the more people that start taking it, the more they start selling it, the way the price will eventually start driving itself down.
And that's typical with most.
That's what I'm saying, because
Yeah.
they're recapturing all that research, but so that gives us promise that it's coming. I mean, so rather than like you said, was it 2 years ago? There wasn't any promise.
Exactly. Well, and right now, like lecanemab, it's a IV therapy. Well, they're under trial. They're trying injections, which would automatically drive that cost down and make it more accessible. So, we're hopeful that the injections are just as effective as the IVs, IV therapy. So we're all just kind of sitting back waiting for the research. But there's got to be that funding for that type of research. So we are advocating. In fact, we have 11 advocates, if you will, who support the association, who are going to DC with others from around the country. And we are advocating because we need some pressure from the government on CMS for treatments like this to be accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. And then the continued development. New drugs are just a start. Wouldn't it be great if we could stop this disease instead of having to be on the back end of it after it's been diagnosed? So just continued research is even another reason why we really, really need people to engage with us. So here's how people can get involved, or as we like to say, engage with the association. And people are like, well, what kind of people are you looking for? There's not, I guess, a typical volunteer or a participant with the association. I even have high school kids that are involved because they have, a grandmother or a grandfather that they love dearly and they just want to give back and they're community minded. So one of the things that we really like to do is we like to find out what fills your bucket. What do you enjoy doing? How do you want to give back? And we find a place for them in the association that is the best fit for them, because there's nothing worse than bringing a volunteer on and they're not enjoying the experience at all. And we also tell people, whether you've got just a little bit of time or you've got a lot of time, we'll find a place for you within the association. Most of what we do is virtual, so you don't have to come to the office, but I have some people who are like, can I come into the office and stuff envelopes or something like that, because they just want to get away a little bit from their home. So as individuals, what we encourage people, if you're aware of the association and you run across somebody or know someone who's been impacted by Alzheimer's or any form of dementia, see if they know about the Alzheimer's Association. Have you sought help or assistance or programs from the Alzheimer's Association, just helping spread the awareness of who we are and what we do? Because yes, we could grow our team, but then we're taking money away from fueling our mission, away from research. So we really rely on volunteers. Helping your neighbors by providing education or support groups. So again, if you are a part of a Rotary group, a part of a church, group, whatever, maybe your neighborhood association you have gathered, you can offer them programs. We do them for free. We usually say if you can get 15 to 20 people or more in a room, we would love to be there and do, we've got a full menu of different programs that we can present. Clinical trials. This is something, because research is only good if we've got people, if you will, that are participating in our clinical trials. Right now, there's a big push. We need minorities. We do not have a great sample groups for Blacks and Latinos. So we really, really need the minorities to participate in our clinical and research studies. Most of them are not invasive. It could just be a question answer, following your lifestyle over a period of time. But then some of them, are a little more invasive, where they'll do MRIs and different things to that effect. But really, we've got some people who want to know more. Their family has Alzheimer's. They want to kind of see where they are, if it's something that they're more likely to get than the others. And then individuals can sign up for a fundraising program, and I'll get more into detail about that. So that's as an individual. And then as an organization, group, or business. So, there's power in numbers. We've all heard that before. So again, if you're part of an organization, you're part of a group, you own a business or work for a business, we encourage you can participate in the longest stay. Because I'm the manager of the longest stay, I'm going to mention that. Or you could start a walk team. We've got the Walk to End Alzheimer's. There's 13 across the state of Indiana. We have one right here in Indianapolis, which this was our first year to reach $1 million, and it was way, way cool. As we said, you could host an educational program or a community listening session. The community listening session is really cool because we just bring people around the table and we ask them about experiences with Alzheimer's and dementia. Have you interacted with the Alzheimer's Association? How do you feel we can best serve you? It's really a listening session where we have our constituents helping us drive how we serve our communities. Also share resources with your business associates, neighbors, and friends. I was at a networking and we did an informational session in Valparaiso a few weeks ago, lost track of time. And we had a gal there who was a teller with a bank. And she was familiar with the association and had gone through one of our programs on how to, the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. And she had this senior citizen who just over time, she's like, something is just not right. I feel like she's forgetting things and she's repeating things. So she was able to kind of direct this individual and their family to the association because she was familiar with what to recognize. So even, through her business, she was able to share our resources. All right, so here is that 800 number. Can't even tell you how many times a day that we share this information. I even have magnets. I'm looking around because they're probably on my desk. But anytime I'm in community, I just give them magnets. You can put it on the side of the refrigerator, on the side of your desk, whatever, wherever, because this is huge. This could be from the question of, I think I have dementia. What do I do? To I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. The doctor gave me a pat on the back and said, see you back in 6 months. What do I do next? And then alz.org is an amazing, there's research studies. I even dig in there every once in a while to look at research studies. I had a cousin who had Down syndrome, later got Alzheimer's disease and passed away. And I was always wondering, is there a tie with, Down syndrome? Is Alzheimer's a common, something common for those with Down syndrome? And there's actually research on that. And they are more likely to have Alzheimer's than those of us who don't have the extra chromosome. So if you ever have any questions, dig into alz.org. If you're looking for something more local, like is there a support group in the area? What are the programs that are available? Just /Indiana after that URL. So alz.org/Indiana. And then again, the communityresourcefinder.org, that is huge. I'm trying to make some decisions on how to move mom out of her house. Where do I move mom? You text Medicare, Medicaid, that kind of thing. It's a huge resource to the community. So AIM, Alzheimer's Impact Movement. This is an advocacy group. And a lot of people don't realize that advocacy is a big part of what we do. We have advocate volunteers, if I can speak, advocate volunteers. And these are people who are passionate. In fact, some of the, a couple that's the chairman of our walk, they started out as advocates because they had a mom who would wander. And it really became concerning to them that there wasn't really any way to notify people that there's someone with Alzheimer's who has wandered and we need to find them. And they were a big part of helping get the silver alert passed here on the local level. Recently at the State House, we are looking to have dementia specialists so that we have from the government levels, from the AAAs like the SACOAs, where that dementia specialist helps raise awareness, and they'll partner with the association so that we can, again, get that messaging out there. So if you are really, passionate and enjoy, if you will, kind of some of the way that, if you think about Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a bill. I won't go on and sing, but if this is something you have an interest in, we would love to have you as an advocate. This isn't a huge time commitment, just maybe an hour a month, if that, but just kind of reaching out to your representative saying, here's something that we are advocating for, and then telling them why. So that is one pillar where you could be a volunteer. What do you know? It's the longest day up there. So let's flip in. So we have really three key, if you will, fundraising development opportunities. And the Walk to End Alzheimer's, everyone is familiar with the Walk to End Alzheimer's. People are familiar because pretty much every nonprofit, if you get on social media, we are walking for lung cancer right now. We're walking for cancer. We're walking, oh gosh, what are some of the other ones? I can't think, but everybody has a walk. You show up at a day, place, and time, and you raise money and walk. It's amazing. It's our signature fundraiser, but we found that some people aren't in a walk market because it's a big state. We only have 13 walks, or the walk's not for them. I sat for 45 minutes where a lady rubbed her knee telling me why she couldn't walk, but they still want to engage with the association. So that's where they've created the longest day. It is growing. It's somewhat of a new type of fundraiser, but we're finding that people are really grasping onto this and they like the concept. So let me explain what the longest day is. So the longest day, it's inspired by the day with most light, which is summer solstice. The motto is the day with most light is a day we fight to end Alzheimer's. So although it is centered around the summer solstice, the way we phrase this is people outshine the darkness of Alzheimer's disease by participating in the longest day. So we're just outshining, think of a long day of light. And it doesn't have to be like a walk is on one specific day. The longest day is year round. We start the campaign in September, we end in August, and then we start right back up. It's people who have a passion and they take that passion or that hobby or what it is that they enjoy doing, and they turn it into a way to raise funds and awareness for the association. Yes, the funds are very, very important because that's how we support care and advocacy and research efforts, but the awareness is just as important. So by putting it on your social media, sending an email to family and friends, inviting people to your home, to your garage sale or your event, whatever it is you're doing, you're raising awareness. So again, it's a do-it-yourself fundraiser, however you want to do it, whenever you want to do it, and wherever you want to do it. Some examples, I have a gentleman who has a 65-mile bike ride because every 65 seconds there's someone diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I have a board member who has a 3-day pickleball tournament because pickleball is the up and coming. We have golf tournaments. I've got a couple gentlemen up north, would love to get a golf tournament right here in central Indiana, but I'm not there yet. Disc golf, you can see down there, we had a disc golf tournament in December. Bridge playing, euchre playing, mahjong, just whatever you enjoy doing. I am still waiting for someone to have a backyard barbecue with bingo. Love bingo. I was like, how fun to have your friends over to play bingo and have a barbecue. And that's your fundraiser and your way to raise awareness. So that's the longest day. You can also get involved, as I mentioned before, if you're with an organization. It could be a Rotary Club, it could be the American Legions, it could be the Kiwanis. We've had Lions clubs do car shows, which would be so much fun. I haven't had a car show yet, but again, you get your organization together, you can get your company together, and I can give companies ideas on how they can use it as a marketing tool to show those in the community that you're community minded and you're giving back to the association. So here's our Walk to End Alzheimer's. Everybody thinks you have to sign up and you go walk. Well, there's other ways that people can get involved. With the Walk to End Alzheimer's and the longest day, this is volunteer driven. We need people to engage with participants, and that could be making phone calls for us. It could be help with recruiting. You can also get involved with sponsorships. So if you're looking, you're like, I just don't want to throw my logo on a banner and call it a sponsorship. If you're looking for a way to engage with people who attend the walk, you can become a sponsor. And it's an amazing way too for team building. You can bring your company or your organization together, wear your matching t-shirts, and go walk for Alzheimer's. So that is the Walk to End Alzheimer's. Care and support. So Jim had mentioned programs, I believe, earlier. We right now, we need to double, triple, even quadruple, if you will, the amount of education we do in the community. But again, we're a small staff. We have multiple volunteers, but we still need more. Community educators are those who are committing to one program a month. That is the, we don't ask that you do more. We have quite a few people who will do more. But again, you go out, we train you. It's not an extensive training, but we train you, give you enough training, I should say, to go out and to facilitate our programs. So community educators, also bilingual community educators. Right now, we're having to bring a gentleman from Fort Wayne to do our programs that we are doing with the Spanish community. And boy, wouldn't it be nice to have someone here locally so we don't have to bring them down from Fort Wayne. But would love to have community educators, people who enjoy being out in the community, and it's not a huge time commitment. And then also support group facilitators. So if you are one of those people who just feel like you're nurturing, you have a way to bring calm amongst people, you can help facilitate, because as you can imagine, some of these conversations could maybe go off course, but you bring them back in. We will train you as well to be a support group facilitator, and we would love to have more across the state. So again, you've seen why, you've seen the statistics. We really need people to engage with us. But it's going to take volunteers and participants to help for us to fulfill our mission, and that is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. So if you, even if there's a little spark of interest of becoming a volunteer with either the advocacy pillar or longest day or with walk, or you want to be a participant, you're like, you know what, I could have some friends together and participate in the longest day, or I would love to get my office together and participate on walk. Here is my contact information. And if it's not my specific pillar, I will happily connect you with others within the association. Because again, we want to make sure that we put you or place you where there is the best fit for what you're looking to do and engage with the association.
Well, this is outstanding. You're covering so many different things. There's so many different things that the Alzheimer's Association does that I doubt if people knew. I have to admit that I didn't really realize that and you're going to hit me, so I'm glad that I'm on Zoom. But I don't know if I realized that the longest day was not focused on the longest day. It was completely a year-round thing. I wasn't aware of that. So,
and you're not the only one.
Okay.
It's something we are working on in terms of our messaging, because it is inspired by the longest day, and it is a long day. It has so many connotations. If you're a caregiver, every day seems like a long day, or if you're caring for a loved one who won't sleep, they've got sundowners. And so yes, it is centered around, it's inspired by the summer solstice, but I've had quite a few fundraisers already. We've already had a softball tournament. We've had the disc golf that I mentioned. We had a golf tournament early, 2 golf tournaments early on in the season, now that I think about it. So yeah, it's because again, if you've got a hobby or something that you have a passion for doing, if it doesn't always happen in June, we want you to be able to do that in December. So it is year round, Jim. It is year round.
I hear it now. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, I always kind of put it together with the longest day, and I had the sundowners thing in my head as part of that, or whatever else as well. So it was, it's kind of it's what the messaging programmed in my head. So,
Yeah, we're working on that. How's that sound?
so you brought up sundowners. I don't know who all's listening here, but if somebody's new to this whole world, they may have heard about that. They may not really understand what it means. They don't really understand the impact it has on the family or the individual. I don't know if I know that's not your, you do all this stuff to run things, but you might want to just kind of tell people what that's about.
Oh, sure. So sundowners, think about it if you're a parent and you have the newborn baby and how they wanted to play or sleep all day and then play at night. So think of sundowners as, with someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, where, you've worked all day or you've taken care of your household all day and you're so tired and you're ready to go to bed, but your loved one's not. And they've got their days and nights mixed up and you can't get them to go to sleep. They're not getting the rest, which means you're not getting the rest. You've got to stay awake to make sure they're not leaving the home or wandering. So that is kind of the Cliff Note version, if you will, of what sundowners is.
Okay, because you hear it, but I don't think a lot of people know what it means. I just want to make sure we got a chance to do that. So, well, this was phenomenal. I'm really excited about about this. What you could look at for volunteers. There's looking for for fundraisers. You've got so many different areas. People to teach classes or run groups. That whatever somebody's calling is or their strengths are or what have you. You did kind of get my thoughts going on connecting you with a friend of mine who is a big car collector. So if you guys are trying to put together a car show type thing, that he can pretty much do a show on his own. So bring some other. So
well, and those are the people, like the connections. Some of our best participants for Walk and the Longest Day have been people that have connected us to other people.
Yeah.
And it's always the question. So you might be like, I am busy. I'm a caregiver for multiple family members right now. I'm running 15 different jobs, if I'm correct, Jim. You've got like one hat you're wearing, and you're like, I'm not interested, but so-and-so is. So connection is very, very important, especially like if like someone who English is their second language and Spanish is their first language and they're community minded, we would love email introductions to just see, and if they say no, it's not like we're mad because Jim connected me with somebody who doesn't want to help, but it's connections. It's like networking. How that goes. It's just important on who you meet and who you can connect with and connect others with.
Well, that's very cool. It's very exciting. And, of course, I'll put your contact information on the video as well when it goes out and all that kind of stuff so that people can find it, before the end, or at the end after they're done. So that we can get you, more people hopefully finding you, as far as that goes, So do you recommend, just calling of course, there's your number, but you call the 800 number as your primary thing just because it's 24/7 and there's always a trained person on the other end, or?
So it depends. If
Okay.
I'm out in community and I talk to somebody and I make that connection with them and they've told me their story, I will encourage them to call me and I will connect them directly with someone here, locally or where they are. But if it again is just, and a lot of people don't even want to talk about it. They'll come by the table and grab all the information, but they're looking for a little more confidentiality. And so, we tell people call the 800 line because it is confidential. So, that's the 800 number is a great start, but you can also contact anybody within the association if you've made that connection and we'll steer you in the right direction.
It's one of those things too, that what I have found being out and about and working with families as we're trying to help them transition to senior living, what have you. It's so often that I find the family, you meet mom or dad that they're moving into a senior living or they're trying to downsize, they're trying to do whatever. And it's very clear when you're with them that that person is in some stage of dementia. but the family is adamant that they are not. Okay, and that they set their family member up to have a very negative experience by putting him into a assisted living that does not have the level of care that that person's going to need. I mean, I see that. In fact, I just literally before we had this thing, I was on the phone with a friend of ours who helps people do this, and he is in that same situation with a family right now that every time they go to a new community, the person's rejected because they don't, they need to be in memory care, and the family is adamant that they don't, so it's trying to figure out how to convey that message to the family that you're not necessarily helping if you're not coming to terms with it. I guess I don't know how to phrase it.
They're not acknowledging it, and
Yeah.
it's common. And usually people who are early in the diagnosis, they're in denial as well.
Mhm.
Just spoke to a gentleman last Thursday or Friday who had been diagnosed with vascular dementia, and he's in denial. Excuse me, because it's a scary diagnosis. Because stop and think about it. If you're diagnosed with cancer, there's a great chance that there's hope for you of some sort. But with Alzheimer's and dementia, before, when you would get the diagnosis, it's scary because there
Yeah.
wasn't any type of hope. So it's a lot like mental health where people don't want to talk about it. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do and bring to the forefront is that we've got to talk about it because it's becoming, as you saw, more prevalent, and it's got to be, identified, because we want the person diagnosed as well as the family to have the best quality of life that they can. And what I will tell a caregiver a lot of times who's like, oh, they're just forgetful, or and oh, they left the oven on or left the stove on, blah, 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 and go on. And I mean, it becomes a safety issue. But I'll say, you know what, just have talk to the healthcare provider. Let's rule some things out. Maybe their medications aren't right. Maybe they need to readjust their medication. Just kind of encourage them to have the conversation so they can rule it out, because sometimes it could be something other than a dementia or dementia cause. But yeah,
It could be a UTI.
yeah, for
You
a
know,
senior, it absolutely could be something that simple. So, we just encourage them. And but again, you're going to have those people who are in denial, and you can just calmly say, if you're ready or when you're ready, give this number a call. So, yeah.
but no, I've watched. I mean, I've many times been in this conversation that's like, trying to pull the daughter aside, going, I'm serious here. You need to take a look at this.
Yeah,
But it's
well,
like,
I mean, you've been in the senior care industry long enough and you've been a part of these conversations to know. I mean, and I appreciate the fact that you're aware of it and that you're concerned and would like to be, if you will, a resource for them. And I would think too, in your job, because it is hard. And I've had these conversations with people when you're having to move from a home that you and your spouse have lived in for 40 years, and you're having to move to assisted living or move them to a memory care community while you're living in the assisted side and you're not going to be together. And so that's one of the calls that we get quite frequently to the 800 line. We're moving mom out of her house that she's lived in for 40 years. What can we do to lessen the impact or the effects of this disease so that she is more comfortable, through the process?
well, one of the things that I found out the hard way by doing it wrong. Okay, so, before I got into this business at all, it was I had downsized my in-laws, my mom, and then my uncle, and I had a situation where when I moved my uncle the first time, I didn't think of it as a move. Okay, because I moved him from an upstairs apartment to a downstairs apartment on the same end of the same building that he'd been in for 27 years, had the same neighbors for 15 years. He got to park in the same parking spot. He had, in my mind, he had new carpet, new cabinets, and a new appliances, and he didn't have to do the stairs. And that was not in his mind. Okay. And so I didn't button things down. I didn't have all the pictures up in the right spot. I didn't do that because it didn't dawn on me that it was necessary, because I was waiting till my wife could help me when she got done with her seasonal project. Right. But him living in that, being uprooted from 27 years in the same spot, went into a massive depression. It was very, very dark, and could have been very damaged, very dark. Did a couple stints at St. Vincent's senior psych ward. And if you were not depressed before you went there, it's a tough place to be. Okay.
Right.
So then the second time we moved him, the psychiatrist was working, who said if he had assisted living where it was a more structured, more social, what have you, that he would thrive. So this time we buttoned it down. I mean, literally, when he walked in, it was a reveal. And he walked in and every picture was hung, every light switch was, labeled, that type of thing. And he has been like the poster child for success there, So it's like we set him up for failure unknowingly. We set him up for success. And then when I got with Caring Transition, one of the things they taught us, especially if you're dealing with someone with a level of dementia, or especially if you're moving someone into a dementia, memory care, we photograph everything in the room that they're replicating. They may only have 1 or 2 rooms, but we replicate the pictures in the exact same pattern. If the nightstand's on the right hand side and the clock's to the left of that, you reproduce that. If the socks are on the right and the underwear is on the left, you reproduce that. And to try to minimize that, waking up every day and things aren't right.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, that was amazing training that they gave you, because that is true. You don't want to happen to them, because it's a huge change anyway. And the time where they move in from maybe assisted living over to a memory care, they're still cognitive enough to know what's going on with them, and they're frustrated with it because just everything's not clicking right for them. So it removes the level of frustration and sadness, as you mentioned. So absolutely, as much as you can minimize the change so it doesn't feel like change, the better.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This is one of the reasons I do Let's Go Pilot, so that we can try to bring this information to people, because I know when I was trying to navigate all this stuff by myself, it was maddening, because I could never get real solid information. It was always, I was living off of myths and misinformation and somebody's uncle's barber's information, so I like to bring the people that actually know what's going on, that live it every day, that then can share it, so that we can not have those sad stories we're seeing on our Facebook support groups.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the invitation. And again, I'm glad we could be a resource for you and those viewing this, and look forward to having others engage with the association.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I will send you a copy of this video as well. So good night, and thanks for sharing.
Take care.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.